Hey guys, welcome to Motoroids. My name is Amit and this is the new Pulsar NS400Z, the upgraded version. It gets more power, it revs up higher, it gets a few additional features. It is slightly more expensive also, but even so, for every given rupee, this motorcycle in India is going to get you the most number of horses. So for every PS, you'll have to spend the least amount of money for a reasonably high performance motorcycle with this one. Changes have been made, the power is higher, it revs up higher, and I let you know everything that you need to know about this motorcycle. So let's get going with that. Now, to start off, the form of this motorcycle has not changed by much. It is essentially the same motorcycle. Visually, the only change that you'll probably see functionally is that the rear tire now is a wider 150 section tire, and that obviously lends this motorcycle more grip, which was required. It now has more power, so it's a welcome change. Also up front now you have a radial tire. The section has not changed, it is still 110 mm, but now this is a grippier Apollo rubber, so a welcome change. But apart from that, the form remains more or less the same. It takes the engine from the Dominar and a lot of bits from the Pulsar range. So that's essentially what allows this motorcycle to keep its price low. The form, as I mentioned, is the same as it was, but let's quickly run through all the things that you need to keep in mind. So up front, it gets a headlight with this LED projector lamp with these pilot lamps or DRLs. Braking, 320 brakes up front, and now they have sintered pads, so the braking has improved and very perceptibly so. So what has happened is not just are the brake pads sharper because they are sintered, since the tires are also radial and grippier, you have more bite, and for on-road purposes, I think now the braking is sufficient. Earlier it was inadequate, now it's about adequate. I wouldn't say that it's really sharp like its KTM cousins, but now it's adequate for road use. It gets these upside down forks and they are not too stiff. I think they do the job of handling everyday duties, going over potholes, over speed breakers rather well. So where a few other firmer upside down forks are going to feel a little too stiff, they do feel soft, and the overall suspension set of this motorcycle is quite comfortable, and you can use it on the highway within the city over bad roads also rather easily, and that's a fantastic thing. The fuel tank is 12 liters and the fuel efficiency is about 28 kmpl, so that gives it a range of a little over 300 kilometers, which is not bad, not great, but it's a good motorcycle to ride within the city and for the occasional run to the highway as well. Now the engine, as I mentioned, has now been tweaked. The air duct for the air filter compartment has been tweaked and some changes have been made. And what has happened now is that while the bike revved up to 9,700 rpm earlier, it revs up to 10,700 rpm now, and power has increased by 3 PS, and it's ever so perceptible. The torque curve and the power curve is also slightly flatter, so you have more power for a longer amount of time through the rev range, and it is very perceptible. Another great change is that now it gets what Bajaj calls its proprietary sport shifter, not a quick shifter. It's a bi-directional sport shifter and it works only in the sport mode. And what it does is, as you can see, there's no sensor here. It has an internal sensor which basically works based on the engine speed, and how it works is it's a software patch, and unlike a pressure sensor, it works on the engine speed, and it really works rather well for what it is. Without having a physical sensor, it can work the way it is working. I really think Bajaj have done a fantastic job, and just like a lot of other things they have done with frugal engineering, this again is an example of how they are innovating and creating features at a much lower cost than their European or Italian counterparts. Another great thing about this motorcycle is that now in the sport mode, the throttle response is a lot sharper and you can really feel it, especially if you're above 6,500 RPM. You really feel that as soon as you crack open the throttle, the response is fantastic and you can almost feel like the rear wheels are eager to spin, especially in the second and third gear. The feeling that you get is that of a very raw, unfiltered kind of a motorcycle, which can be a lot of fun in the hands of a good rider. So if thrill is something that you're seeking, the sport mode would really bring a big smile on your face, especially if you keep the motorcycle above 6.5, 7,000 RPM. And I absolutely love the sport mode. Now let's talk about the engine RPM vis-a-vis the city usability and the speeds that this motorcycle does in each gear. Now the first thing that I noticed about this motorcycle, and I'll start with the flaws first, is that between 2 and 3,000 RPM, about the rev range where you generally use the motorcycle while trundling around in the city, you have a very unpredictable kind of a power delivery. You have a spike and suddenly you have a flat spot, and the power transmission is not very smooth. It almost feels like it's misfiring. You really have to keep the motorcycle above 3000 RPM for it to behave in a manner where it's predictable. Around 3000 RPM or below, there is a bit of either a flat spot or a spike, a misfire kind of a behavior from the engine, and I'm not very fond of it. Also, while you're starting off or riding at very slow speeds and shifting gears, there is a wee bit of a tendency to stall. So these are two things that I did not like about the motorcycle. But apart from that, once you start building power 3000 RPM onwards, there is progressive, although not very strong power delivery build-up all the way till 6000 RPM, at which point the power starts building up very, very reassuringly. And from that point onwards, all the way to 10,000 RPM, this motorcycle builds power in a very, very nice manner. And it really needs an open patch to stretch its leg. And that's really where the motorcycle really comes into its own within the city. I don't think it comes across as a motorcycle which is very happy, especially at slow speeds. From slow to moderate speeds, it's okay. But it's really above 50, 60, 70 kilometers per hour where you really start to enjoy this motorcycle. It really wants to rev. And if you want to be riding it at slow speeds, I really don't think it really shines. On open highways at speeds above 100 kilometers per hour, it really feels like a fantastic motorcycle. Also, because of its lighter weight at 174 kgs as compared to the Dominar, it feels more flickable, it feels a little bit more agile. And now with better braking, it is a little bit more reassuring also with the grippier tires. All of that comes together, and in the first gear, you'll see that this motorcycle reaches 58 kilometers per hour. In the second gear, it reaches 82 kilometers per hour. In the third gear, you'll see it crossing 100 at 102 kilometers per hour. And this motorcycle will reach 140 kilometers per hour in the fourth gear. In the fifth gear, it will reach 156 kilometers per hour on the speedo. And in the sixth gear, it will cross 160 on the speedo with a true speed of 157 kilometers per hour. Also, about the rideability or the in-gear speeds, when you are going to be riding it in higher gears at slower speeds, in sixth gear, you'll have to keep it above 55 kilometers per hour. In the fifth gear, you'll have to keep it above 45 kilometers per hour. In the fourth gear, above 30 kilometers per hour. In the third gear, above 20 kilometers per hour. And in the second gear, it'll ride on nicely above 15 kilometers per hour. So those are the speeds you'll have to keep it above in any given gear. About the engine smoothness, I think this engine by and large is smooth. Especially the middle usable range is quite smooth. It's not as buttery smooth as a Honda. It's acceptable. Below 3000 RPM, as I mentioned, there is some work to be done. But from 3000 all the way till 7,500 RPM, I think there are no mentionable vibrations on the foot pegs or the seat or the handlebar. But once you hit 8000 RPM, there are some minor vibrations which start creeping in. But I really think for the kind of platform this is, they are not bothersome, they are okay, and they are acceptable. In terms of handling, as I mentioned, it is predictable. The braking has improved. It is not as sharp as its KTM brethren, but now it's a lot more predictable. I think the suspension is quite soft. It's very usable for the most part. For the city and for the highway, it's fantastic. Unless you take it out on the track, it's not going to show you its limitations. Either you take it extreme corner carving or you have a pillion on board. That's the two situations where the softness of the suspension is really going to spring to the fore. But for the most part, it's usable. It's not a very sporty suspension, not for the expert track-oriented kind of a enthusiast, but for the moderate guy who wants to be riding to work over the weekdays and wants to take it out to a set of twisties over the weekend, I think this motorcycle does a decent job. Now the seat height at 805 mm is not too high, not too low. I am 5 feet 10, and as you can see, I have a bend in my knees and I'm quite comfortable. So unless you are very short, someone who's 5'4" or 5'3", you should be okay riding this motorcycle. And the riding position by itself is quite comfortable. It's not too committed, it's not too upright. I think you can rest your arms nicely onto the handlebar, spread your weight out, and over long journeys you should be comfortable. The seat, although it's not very soft, but I think that's a good thing. It's moderately firm and it's very long, allows you to move laterally fore and aft. The rear seat is not the most comfortable. It's long enough, but it's a step seat, so it's not the most comfortable. But I think it's a reasonably good setup for the rider. You can ride it for long journeys. The pillion will have to adjust a little bit, only good for short to medium journeys, but overall a very comfortable motorcycle to ride. Now let's also have a look at the instrument console on this motorcycle. And this motorcycle gets this LCD display. You have a tacho here, you have a speedo, gear indicator, you have the fuel gauge here, odo, and you have the 4 modes to choose from. And the sport shift, as you can see, is on right now. You can turn it on or off. The average fuel efficiency is there, and you have the vehicle info. So you can choose the ride modes, which are road, sport, rain, and off-road. Sport is a different setup. Off-road and road are the same setup, and rain is a different setup. So the power delivery in road and off-road modes is the same. Also, you can turn the traction control on and off, and you can turn the sport shift on or off, but only in the sport mode, not in other modes. You have Bluetooth connectivity and music. This is the trip info, and finally you also have a lap timer. You also have a USB socket. And let's also have a look at the switchgear very quickly. You have a low beam, a high beam, and a day flasher. These are the buttons to navigate through the menus. Then you have the turn indicators, which are all LED, and this is the horn, a hazard button, engine kill switch, and the starter, of course, and you have the headlight on and off button. Now the mirrors are beautifully designed, but my gripe with them is that they are a little bit too stiff to adjust, which is also a good thing. They won't change their direction once you have adjusted them, and I think they're wide enough, provide a good view of what's coming from behind. So while they are sporty, they are also quite practical. As I mentioned, fuel tank is 12 liters, gives you a range of a little over 300 kilometers to the liter. And also, I'm sure you want to have a listen to how the engine and this bike sounds like. So let's fire this baby up and see how this sounds like. What I can tell you is that the seat of the pants experience is quite nice, and you really feel like you're riding something which has a very throaty, very nice, very bassy exhaust. Those are the changes which have been made. It is quicker to 60 by 0.5 seconds. So while it did its 0 to 60 kilometers per hour in 3.2 seconds earlier, now it does that in 2.7 seconds. Earlier it did its 0 to 100 in 7.5 seconds. Now it does it in 6.4 seconds, which is 1.1 seconds quicker. And the top speed has gone up by 7 kilometers per hour to 157 kilometers per hour, which is quite impressive for a motorcycle which is less than 2 lakh rupees ex-showroom. 8,000 rupees more expensive as compared to the previous version, but you do get a lot of goodies. So like I mentioned, you get a wider rear tire, a front radial, you get a sport shifter, you also get more power, you get a flatter torque curve. And talking of the flatter torque curve, I wanted to show you something which would be of use to those who like getting into the technicalities. So let's have a look at the ride modes graph. So what you see here is the intended throttle opening once you ring the throttle. So as you move towards this side, the actual opening is this vertical axis. So in the sport mode, the opening is the maximum. This is the road and off-road mode, the blue one, and the green one is the rain mode. Now similarly, you have these power and torque curves. So the blue one is the previous motorcycle's power curve. As you can see, the power is more here and it's also flatter. Similarly, the blue dotted curve is the torque curve of the previous motorcycle. This one is the upgraded version. And as you can see, while the peak torque here is the same number, but the torque overall is flatter for the new version. The motorcycle is available in 4 colors: black, grey, white and red. You can choose the color that you like. The ground clearance at 165 mm is a bit of a bother, especially if you're riding 2 up, and if you go over a bad speed breaker, it is going to scrape its belly. So that is something that I expected Bajaj to address. They have not, but that's okay, I guess. I really think that this motorcycle is fantastic for those who are seeking the thrills at the least amount of money as compared to the NS200. You just have to pay about 35,000-40,000 rupees extra and you get so much more power and more features. So for those seeking sheer value, this definitely is a fantastic motorcycle. Obviously, those who are looking for better qualities like a more refined engine or a better brand or whatnot, I really think there are some flaws with this motorcycle. Like I mentioned, there is a bit of a power deviation below 3000 rpm. The mid-range could probably have been stronger, and overall the experience could have been a little bit more satisfying. It just falls short of being a premium experience. It's not quite that, but I'm not complaining because for the price that it's being offered at, it's absolutely sensational. What do you think of this motorcycle at 1,95,000 rupees ex showroom? Do let me know in the comment section. And if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to Motoroids, and until next time, this is your friend Amit Changani signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and ride safe.